Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to another narrator interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia. Many of you know me as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. And joining us today is a narrator and voice actor making their official debut here on the show. Now, ever since he played his first video game, storytelling has been at the heart of this narrator's life. His absolute joy and passion in this world is bringing stories to life. With his smooth, weathered, hypnotic baritone voice and versatile range, his performances transport the listeners to that moment in time of the story. His favorite types of stories range from edge of your seat, listen with the lights on, heart-pounding suspense, to space operas in a galaxy far, far away, to epic and magnificent worlds filled with magic, high stakes, RPG concepts, and a sidekick group banter of hilarious comic relief, and many in between. As a narrator, there's nothing like the feeling of lifting ideas, places, characters, and human emotions off the page for the listeners to experience. And nothing throughout life truly connects one human to another like stories. It's literally magic, and we can all use it more of that authenticity, wonder, and human connection these days. And out of all the genres of voice acting, audiobooks, and e-learning, which became his greatest passions, he is also a husband, where he also spent time with his family, as well as doing everything with their beloved dog. And I am so excited to have him here on the show because, for those who may remember a previous narrator interview, this person was name dropped in that interview not too long ago. So, without further ado, let us give a huge round of applause to our guest today, Mr. Tim Ratliff. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hello, and thanks for having me. Really glad to be here.
Awesome, Tim. I'm so excited to have you here on the show. Now, before we begin, is there a random fact about you that not a lot of people may know?
Random fact about me that not a lot of people know. In the narrating world, a lot of people don't know that I currently work in construction as my day job. I'm a consultant for a waterproofing and roofing consulting company.
Ooh, okay. And then for those that do know of your background as a narrator and voice actor, Tim, I understand that you're actually in the process of working on several projects at the moment. Would you like to share with the viewers and listeners?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm working with an author named Christian Callius right now, and he has a series called Universe in Flames, which is basically like imagine Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, Dragon Ball Z, Stargate, and all the awesome shows kind of put together. The series is called Universe in Flames, and I will be jumping into the middle of the series for book 8 because the previous narrator doesn't do audiobooks anymore, and you'll get to experience all kinds of cool stuff. It kind of blew my mind because there's like Asgardians, there's Greek gods, there's epic space battles, and there's like Dragon Ball Z style fights with powers and everything. And it's super fun. So I can't wait till that comes out.
Nice, Tim, nice. So before we dive into your background as a narrator, let's start at the very beginning. So, storytelling from your bio has been an integral part of your childhood and upbringing for as long as you can remember. So, what would you say would be the definitive aha moment or moments that put you on this path of yours?
That's a good question. I would say my earliest memories are when I was like 6 years old and I had a Nintendo NES controller in my hand and I was either playing Punch Out or Super Mario Brothers or something like that. It's probably Super Mario 3 because that was my absolute favorite NES game with my friends. We would get the warp whistles and we would beat the game in like 30 minutes, just like we knew it like clockwork. Just being able to jump into a story with all the characters and the drama and everything, something about it just really captured me in. And then throughout the years, it was Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64. Xbox, and then Halo was kind of the next like monumental step. Like,
Mm.
whoa, this is really cool. Like, I got hooked on that. That's high school LAN parties, playing with my friends, that kind of stuff. But I kind of digress here. Back to your question, the definitive moment for me for like storytelling, getting into this whole thing, it started in 2020. Uh, the pandemic hit. I was really kind of underwater at my day job in Reno,
Mhm.
Nevada at the time. And I was just sitting there going, man, like I need to change something because this is not quite what I want. And luckily and unfortunately, the pandemic happened, but I got to work from home. So that was nice. I got a little bit of a breather. I could kind of put my head above water and everything. And I started listening to podcasts because I didn't have a whole lot of work to do. So I started listening to Crispin Freeman's Voice Acting Mastery podcast. And I was like, voice acting, that might be fun. I've always done like crazy character voices and thought of stories in my head and that kind of stuff. Um, so I listened to that. There's about 250 episodes. I listened to 100 and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to give this a shot. So that's kind of where it all started. And then from there, it just kept growing.
All right, that's actually pretty cool. That is really, really cool. So, going to my next question, once you got a feeling that this is something that you wanted to pursue and build a career upon, how did you find like or better way to say it, how did you manage your, family time with your family, your job, and of course, being a narrator and a voice actor? How did you manage all three to not get completely burned out?
Right. I'm still trying to figure that out. But um, what it kind of boils down to, I would say, Gabriel, is I want all three, and uh, what I will say is that the thing that, yeah, going back to when I was in Reno, I was kind of getting mentally burned out, like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. Um, I got into meditation, and that really, really helped stop the rumination in my head about the past and the future. It really just kind of helped bring me back to reality and just ground me. Uh,
Mm,
I I I would sit there and, think about the tasks at work and be like, "Oh my gosh, I gotta do this, this, and this." And I would build them up in my mind so much sometimes where it's like, when I actually stopped and thought about it and just, grounded myself, I'm like, "This isn't that big a deal. It's just a list of stuff to do." But in my head, it was such a big monumental thing. Um, so meditation is kinda what I learned from then, and I still continue to learn with meditation, is that's what grounds me, and it keeps me from floating off into outer space and or getting burned out. Um, and then it's really just dividing my time. Day job takes the priority, then family time, and then it's voice acting time. So the hard part's trying to get 8 or 9 hours of sleep
mhm.
because yeah, that doesn't always happen. I'm always doing something after work to further my business and my goals.
Absolutely. And on the topic of goals, when you began, building your website, building your platform, and getting the skills along the way, what ultimately is your goal for every project that you are brought into, as well as the promise you're making, not just to yourself, but to the author?
Oh, absolutely. So whenever I take on a project, I've been doing this now for about 3 years and studying for it 2 years prior to that. So 5 years in the industry in general. Um, when I take on a project, I intend to fully commit, go with the flow, and have fun. Those are my main goals while narrating, and that's the best version of me to bring that story to life. Uh, I would say that drawing a blank right now, but yeah, the authors are trusting me with their story, and my job is to connect with that story, all the characters, all of their baggage, all of their personality, their tones, their relationships. I need to kind of interconnect all that and then make this really rich tapestry of storytelling. And that's my goal. And that's something I expand upon every time I do a new book or I study a new genre of voiceover. The goal is to keep sharpening that blade of storytelling so it'll cut anything in the future, you know?
Yes, very true. Well said, Tim. Well said. And going back a little bit to almost like your beginnings in the voice acting and narrator world, what really surprised you about it in terms of, the setup and everything? Because I know for sure a lot of people who are unaware of, becoming a voice actor or narrator, there's a lot of things that go into, such as getting your booth set up, getting certain types of mics, and just everything. So, can you share with the viewers and listeners, like, how you began building your setup and what you learned about the business side at that early stage?
Sure. That's a great topic, Gabriel, because not everybody talks about that and it's often overmissed. A lot of people will hear about voice acting and go, "Oh, I can start for $300. Heck yeah, let's do it. I'm going to be a millionaire. I have a great voice." All the traditional stumbling points. I started with a USB mic because I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm like, I'm just going to give it a shot. Let's try some coaching. Let's see if this really feels right. Otherwise, I'm not going to make the investment. So I started with that. And then I quickly realized that in order to get audiobooks going, which is what I was really drawn to, I need a more professional setup. I started learning about ACX specs. ACX is Audible Creative Exchange. It's where I first started getting audiobook production work and narrating. So over the years, I have kind of upgraded. I have a PVC blanket fort, as they call it. It's a PVC frame, basically with 3 layers of heavy moving blankets around it. And that allows me to achieve what's called a noise floor of -60 or better. Mine's
Mm,
actually -75. That way, if there's any fluctuations around me, I have a little bit of wiggle room, so I make sure I hit spec. Um, the other thing is too, you got to understand, you got to do your own mastering and your own editing and your own processing. That was the biggest shock, is that, oh gosh, I have to sit here and one finished hour of audio takes like 3 finished hours or 3 real hours to get the editing done. And you
mm-hmm.
have to listen to your own voice, and then you sit there and you judge yourself, and it's this whole thing when you're on the journey. Um, and then to your point, you have to treat it like a business.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want it to be a business, it can be a hobby. That's totally fine. But if you want to make money and you want to get traction in this industry, you have to treat it like a business. That was a big stumbling block because I'm like, man, I don't want to deal with accounting and all this other stuff and, bank accounts and keeping track of everything. But I realized quickly that, ooh, those are tax write-offs because I have a sole proprietorship. Okay, this makes more sense. Um, the other big shock getting started is the amount of money you need to get started.
Yes.
I don't think people talk about that very much either. I mean, my first 2 years with me slowly building the business, it probably cost me between $6,000 and $7,000 to get started. Because you got to keep in mind, you have operating expenses. I have a website to host. I have Google Drive. I have various other softwares that I need for my business. Um, and then just going back to the amount of money I put in, you need an interface, ideally an XLR microphone, depending on what type of voiceover you're doing, headphones, studio monitors, a computer. And then I have this really cool electric standing desk so I can stand and narrate and then sit. That's really handy, but not needed. So I think that doesn't get discussed a lot. I think
Mm.
people think they can pick up a USB mic and they can just be in their bathroom or their kitchen where it's echoey and they can make money from home. And that's simply not the truth.
It is not. And as we are going to touch on later, it's not a get rich quick money scheme. Just same thing as like being an author. It's not. It is a hustle. It's a grind, especially if you're an indie. You have to balance your own finances, get your own team, figure out where you want to publish and how you want to publish. It's a lot of searching, researching, and doing homework to really understand if this is definitely the industry that you want to be a part of. Now, kind of stepping away from a little bit of the business side, let's talk a little bit about some of your own experiences in the creators booth. Now, without spoiling too much, from the projects that you have announced earlier in the interview, how do you ensure that the characters that you play are authentic to the world that the author is writing them in?
Hmm. That's a great question. Very key as well. My process for figuring out the characters as I am prepping the book and as I want to narrate them is I first read the story. And what I do is I prep the book and I put a different color for each person talking. That way, as I'm narrating later, I'm like, oh, yellow is Argos, red is this guy, pink is this
Mm,
person, that way you can just lose yourself in the story and you don't stumble so much. You're not going, wait, hang on, who's this person? Um, but as you're reading the book, you just like if you read a book for fun, you find out who the characters are. If the author writes it very well, the character will give something away that you're like, oh, that's why you're like that. Oh, and then it just makes it even more rich of a story and an experience. Um, so yeah, that's where I really find the character inspiration. It's not just a voice. You have to embody the character. That's the goal. You
mm,
know, it's not just, oh, I can talk like this. It's no, 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 no. Like, why does the character talk like that? Are
yes.
they big? Are they small? Are they quiet? Do they have a checkered past? Um, have they made decisions they regret? Why are they so shy or timid or bold or whatever? And you find that in the text by reading the words and also identifying the subtext, like the meaning below everything. And to me, when you connect with the text and the subtext, the narrating job just flows really well. And you don't have to struggle. It's not work, it's just fun. So that's my process. Read the book, prep the manuscript, and then on a separate sheet, I find all the characters and I'll write their description, what's their relationship to everybody else, what's their general attitude. Like for example, this book takes some inspiration from Dragon Ball Z. There's a character named Argos. He sounds just like Vegeta, just a little coarse, a little brash, but very intelligent and gets things done. Except in this book, he's not so angry. So that was my inspiration right there. I'm like, ooh, I can totally draw upon that authentically because I know how that character feels, and it's very similar to this other show I remember seeing. Um, and then in terms of authenticity, I think you mentioned that part too.
Mm,
Authenticity, it really boils down to my gut feeling, and that feeling of I don't know how you describe it. I mean, you're a writer. When something feels right, there's a light bulb that goes off in your head, and
absolutely.
your whole body just for me, my whole body kind of tingles, and I get this vibe like, yeah, that's it. And then I channel that, and then that's when lightning strikes, and everything's awesome.
Nice. Now, are there any like favorite characters that you like to tell people about that you voice? And also in these productions, who have been some of the most challenging characters? Because let's be honest, from all the narrators that I've talked, there's usually one or a couple characters that usually throw people off. And as I've also learned, certain words that narrators cannot say when they are in character.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Now you're asking the hard ones, man. Just a word in general that is difficult for me to pronounce is gasps. I always feel weird about the ps, ps, ps at the end. And then rural, I have a heck of a time with that word too. Um, but in terms of characters that were really difficult to challenge or to bring to life, For me, it's female characters, not bringing the character to life. It's more making them vocally distinct because I
Mm,
have all this baritone and a little gravel, and it's harder to get up in this upper range, but then make them sound different. Yeah, let's go do that. Get up in the upper range and then also try to make them sound distinct, but also keep them to their character. Um, I would say that's the hardest part. Like there were probably 8 female characters in this book. I think I did them justice, but that's one thing that I have difficulty with is
mm.
female characters in general, just with the upper vocal range compared to my deeper voice. I can have more fun, that kind of thing.
Very true. Very true. And you actually brought up something which actually leads to a fan question that one of my viewers actually been asking about and would like to hear your thoughts on, Tim. And that is the notion when it comes to narrating certain characters, because as narrators are very versatile in terms of accents and dialects and stuff like that. But I know, and probably you've seen this as well as a fellow creative and narrator, is that there's been this debate of should only certain types of narrators voice certain characters. One good example of this person gave is male narrators voicing female characters. There was one narrator I had on another show who shared their experiences, and he even acknowledges that probably wasn't the project that he should have been attached to, but he just loved the story so much. But unfortunately, when it was revealed, some of the readers found out that it was a male narrator voicing the book, which was all a female-led story. Nobody wanted to read the book or listen to the audiobook. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on like this kind of big discussion, which not only goes into the narrator and voice acting world, but also just animation as well, as there are a lot of narrators that have transferred over into the world of animation too.
Sure. Yeah, I mean that's a great topic. It goes to me, all of that is based on authenticity. Um, my favorite types of audiobooks to listen to are duet, where all the female lines are by a female narrator and all the male lines are by a male narrator. I think that's the most real authentic experience you could possibly get. I'll do
Right.
my absolute best to sound like a 12-year-old girl for 5 scenes in this book, but it's going to be kind of like this, like I don't know, depending on the character, but uh well, I'm just thinking about what you said. A male narrator, what was it, first person?
It was a
Female
female driven story, the female lead, and he voiced the female lead
in an audiobook?
in an audiobook. And here's the thing, the author already knew that he hired a male narrator, loved the performance of said narrator, and went ahead with the production.
Gotcha. I would say again, it's authenticity. Can you authentically do that character justice compared to maybe like a female narrator? If you I'm drawing inspiration from Dungeon Crawler Carl. Jeff Hayes, he can make Princess Donut sound completely real and authentic, and he does a wonderful job. Her and Katya and all the other female characters, I would say that's an example of a narrator who can definitely do it, and I don't see the problem. Um, like I said, if you're looking for truly authentic, duet is the way to go, where a female narrator does all the female voices and male does all the male. But that I guess that's what I would say. If you can authentically do it, what's the issue?
Well said. Well said, Tim. And now kind of going into what I call the reflective questions, and kind of a little deep personal one. So as you kind of found your footing and started, gaining momentum in the early years of, being a narrator and voice actor, when did you feel confident in yourself to like tell people saying that, you are a narrator and voice actor, as well as telling friends and family?
Sure. That's a great question. You're right, because in the first couple of years I was studying it, I had my USB mic and, I was auditioning and it sounded terrible. And now I don't want to hear them ever again kind of thing. But I would say kind of for me where the dam where I broke through the dam and everything just started flowing really well is after I got done with Sean Pratt's Ginger Yoda Dojo audiobook nonfiction narration course. It's like 14 modules and you do one a month. And Sean Pratt is an amazing teacher. He has like over 1,200 books on Audible or 1,200 audiobooks. He mainly does nonfiction, but he was also a theater actor beforehand. So he knows how to act. He knows how to do the business side. For me, he was a one-stop shop into, hey, you're here. Let's get you up to here. I know I can see your potential. Let's go through my course, and I think you can do really well. So that's after I got done with that, and I started putting some demos of my work with him on social media and got really good feedback. That's when I'm like, okay, now let's get that website going. Let's start really auditioning. Let's apply for, after I had a few books under my belt, let's apply for publishers like Podium and Tantor, and I'm on a few of those rosters now. So that was my kind of like breakthrough moment, the first big one. And I hope that there's about 10 more, in the next 20 years. So
Nice. All right. And now kind of going a little bit forward. So these questions are going to be more about, the middle years where you actually are not so much new, but you are much more well knowledge than you were previously. Now, as with everything, social media is a huge thing for all creatives to have. It is sacrilegious to not have a social media platform as a creative because it allows us to do so many things. I have a lot of friends who are in the narration, voice acting world. Amber M, Daphne Winters, Damian Knight, Sammy Rowe, Kyle Snyder. I already mentioned Amber M, Brittany Rice, Heather Daniels, Tegan, and many, many more. Ethan Gray is another person. And all of them have a lot of social media presence and use their platform to showcase their versatile range as well as upcoming projects, snippets, and just having late night narration reads. But as I'm sure you'll definitely agree, Tim, the digital age is very, very different as it was 20 years ago. I mean, it would have been unheard of for the average individual to make a career in voice acting. I mean, yes, voice acting in like animation and so forth has always increased because you have a lot of people from Broadway who have transferred over. Hanna-Barbera is an example. But within the last few years or so, specifically 5 years during the COVID years, a lot of people, much like you, Tim, have taken classes, done the work, and sometimes have gotten certificates to say, like, I am a certified narrator, voice actor of this school, and just build a presence. But with that said, it's a double-edged sword. We leave ourselves exposed to a lot of negative things. It's very socially draining, emotionally draining. And with the rise of AI, which I'm sure you have a lot of comments on that as a narrator, it's just a lot. And it can make us question a lot of things, such as how do we discipline ourselves? How do we stay creative? And how do we get out of this funk of thinking that we don't belong here, especially in an age where you could literally take someone's voice without their consent and make something entirely original, air quotes. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this very loaded question.
right. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but it's a great topic to discuss. I would first start by saying that social media, some coaches and some casting people, they say, well, you don't need it, but in 2026, visibility is everything. And I would say that social media is a free to use, but very labor intensive Ball and chain,
Yes.
necessity. It's got a lot of different names depending on the day, but it also helps connect us. When I'm in my booth, I'm just kind of by myself. I'm married, I have 2 dogs, but it's really cool to be able to see what my friends are up to. Hey, I'm taking a little 10-minute break. Oh, Steve's doing really good. He booked that. Oh, crap, that's cool. It's nice to stay connected. And then other social media like Clubhouse, there's a lot of audiobook narration groups and meetings and stuff. So you just get a chat and be like, whew, 2026, am I right? How's it going out there?
Yeah.
Y'all hanging in there? It's nice to have that community and just people with for me particularly, and with you with a writers group, just
Mhm.
people that are in the trenches doing the same thing, dealing with the same stuff,
Yes.
especially AI, right? That's just the biggest bunch of yeah, I have a word in mind, but the
Oh,
biggest
go ahead and let loose. Trust me, I've heard a lot. I've heard a lot on
biggest
the show.
bunch of bullshit I've ever seen in my life. I'm understanding that companies like Meta, they took books and they threw them into the Augur machine for large language models and all this AI stuff, and that's how they started feeding their program. And that's bullshit with no consent. And then same with voice actors and celebrities and everybody. They could just do whatever
HDX.
they want now. And uh, Karin Gilfrey, she's part of NAVA, the National Voice Actor
Hmm.
Association. She's very active on social media about AI and kind of what's going on and, all the latest developments. She showed that bite dance video where those 2 celebrities were literally fighting, and it actually sounded pretty good and it looked pretty good. And that was just kind of mind blowing. I'm like, yeah, it's just there really needs to be legislation, and it's really irritating that it's and I don't follow world events, like an expert, but it seems like there's this race between China and the United States in particular with this AI thing, and they're both trying to race to the top. It's like an arms race from the 80s, but it's technology now is what it seems like, and they're so gung ho on getting ahead that they just let everything go by the wayside. Consent, laws, wrangling this Wild West in. They don't care. It's just cowboy land. And it's just bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I shared a 2-hour file with someone, they could probably clone my voice and they could make their own audiobooks that sound just like me with no emotion, but sound like me. You know,
Yes.
it's just, yeah, it's absolute bullshit. I don't use AI hardly at all. Occasionally I'll hit the button on my phone and I'll be like, "Hey," if I get curious, like, "Hey, what's the distance from the Earth to the moon?" And I don't type it into Google. I just voice right into the Gemini thing on my phone. But other than that, I really don't use it. Um, I'm sure it has productivity features and it can be an asset to a business, and that's something I'm going to look more into in 2026. There's actually a conference coming up I'm going to called Voice Over Atlanta, and one of the panels is all about AI and how to use it instead of just getting mad at it.
Hmm.
How to turn it into a productive tool because it's not going anywhere, man. Uh,
Nope.
Everybody's affected by it. I saw an article the other day, like this one of those companies, they took half their employees and laid them off because AI can do their job now. And it's like, okay, so what? Total economic collapse? Is that the goal? Yeah. Have you guys possibly thought this through? No, no, no. We got to keep going. Got to keep going. It's like, why? It was
Yes.
just fine before. Uh, that's my unfiltered comments on AI. I think it's just bullshit.
Yeah. But as one of my friends also said, like AI steals creativity for the wealthy, which prevents the creatives from ever obtaining wealth.
Yeah.
If you break it down, that's probably the most truest sense of AI. Now, yes, to your point, AI is it's in everything we do. And I think what a lot of people have a lot of issues with, I definitely have a lot of issues with, is generative AI, which generates a voice and stuff. And I also found out that Google Docs now has the feature where it will narrate your stuff, which kind of threw me off for a second. I was like, oh, that's a little strange because it's like I don't like it. It does not sound good. I tested to see what it was just to pique my curiosity. I was like, I don't like it. This is why I like working with narrators as an author. I love the range and I love having that collaboration with narrators and not only building my repertoire as an author, but also giving them stuff to also add to their portfolio as well to get more authors to choose them. Which now kind of goes into the business side of being a narrator, Tim, which I'm very keen to hear your insight into some of these questions. Now, much like authors, narrators are also creatives as well. They love stories, they love certain types of genres that, really pique their interest. As your bio states, you love, stories that keep you at the edge of your seats. They're heart pounding suspense, action adventure, space operas, the works. And kind of going back to this authenticity, I've always found it interesting how whenever I ask this question, it's very, very, I don't want to say divisive, but the answers are always changing. And that is, of course, when you narrate, do you narrate for the audience in mind, or do you narrate the character as if he was a real person? And the reason I bring this up is that authors are like readers. We have an expectation of how a character is supposed to sound like in our heads. But when we have a narrator involved, it's a very, very different thing. And yes, you do want to have that transparency with the narrator and author so that everyone's on the same page. But I cannot tell you how incredibly surprised I have been when I have just told my narrator, say, go nuts, here's the bare bone skeleton, experiment and have fun. And I would love to hear your insight into this idea of, in terms of narrating for the audience, do you narrate for the author's audience, the genre's audience, or do you just narrate to just bring the character to life and not consider the audience or not have it be the main focus?
That's a great question too. I would say that it's kind of a mixture of three things. It's when I'm doing an audiobook, I look at the genre first. If it's a sci-fi book, okay, I don't shoot for, oh, this is how a sci-fi book should sound. Well, no. It depends on the book completely. If it's like Dungeon Crawler Carl, it's going to be awesome and epic and extremely real because that story is so well written. It's so intimate and the narrator it just flows like butter. But if it's more of like a military space opera or something, that's going to probably be more like the captain strode into the dining room and then he addressed his cadet. It depends on the story. But getting back to your question, I would say that I narrate to someone in mind, a person I actually know in real life. That's in my head. I also have the audience in my head, which is more than likely the fans of the genre, or just people who like fun stories. And then I forget where I was going with the third one, but what did you say previously? You said the audience. I can't remember what you said. I was going to jump onto that, but
I think it was narrating the character,
oh,
but not having the character, not having the audience as the main focus.
Right. That's the third component is when I'm a character, when I'm Otacon talking to Chase, his twin brother, I am that character. I am not just, Tim trying to pretend to be Otacon. My goal is to be Otacon, Argos, as much as I can be. Know what he's feeling inside at that moment. Where is he? Oh, he's in a spaceship. Oh, but in this scene, he's on a different planet with higher gravity. So he's probably really struggling. So that kind of changes how I talk and how I perform and how I contort my body to the scene. So it's a combination of I talk to a specific person in mind. I talk to the audience at large, especially when I'm the narrator for third person. And then I also talk from character to character because they're alive too. All of those things to me kind of brings the story to the best that I can possibly give you.
Mm, well said, Tim. Well said again. And I think it is, very important to have these discussions because, again, not a lot of people may know about the voice acting and narrator world in terms of, building setups, getting the mic, really understanding, the craft of business. Because it's not just making funny voices or anything, it's acting. And it should be treated as acting.
Yep.
Sorry to say that not a lot of people have that same mentality or mindset, but it is acting. And I think you truly said it best is that you are not trying to be, Tim voicing this character. You are trying to embody that character to the fullest extent that you physically can, based upon your range of skills. And as we near the end of this incredible narrator interview, there are just a few quick questions would like to hear your thoughts on. And one of them is actually a fan question. It's actually a really nice one. And it is, what is your dream audiobook project that you would like to be attached to? Or who is your dream author that you would love to narrate for?
Ooh. I can't name just one author, so I'm not going to fall into that trap. But my dream genre, it's my favorite one to listen to, but I've yet to do one, is lit RPG. I really, really, if the gods are listening, I'm ready. Let's go. I really, really want to do lit RPG. Basically a video game book where you level up and the story's excellent. Like that's my next big step. Um, Sci-fi is really fun, and so is my upcoming fantasy books, but lit RPG is going to be the big stepping stone I'm really waiting for. So,
Ooh, I've heard a lot about that. And I think I may know a few authors whose books are very much like that. And I will definitely say this, Tim, if you have not checked this author out, I'm going to name drop him here, viewers and listeners, and you may know who I'm talking about. It is the author of the Avalon Assignment, which, if you have read any of the Tom Clancy books or played any of the Tom Clancy licensed games,
right.
the Avalon Assignment is definitely something I think, Tim, you should look into because it is very much in the homage of, Tom Clancy's world in terms of it's very, go back to this notion of authenticity. It's very authentic. It reads like someone who has had experience in the armed forces.
Very cool. Yeah, I wrote that down. I'll check that out. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. And the next quick question I would like to ask you is actually something that I love asking guests. And it is, in your opinion, which do you find to be the most difficult when you near the end of a project? Knowing when to stop narrating and stop doing lines, or knowing when the project is finished in the sense of editing's done, no new lines need to be recorded, everything's ready for upload, it's time.
Right. That's one of the hardest parts of narrating is like, oh, it's over. Crap. Especially when it was really, really fun. For me, it's when all the pickups are done and the book is officially launched on whatever platform, whether it's Audible or Spotify or whatever's going on. But I guess there's two. There's one for me doing the raw recording, and then I'm like, the end. Oh, well, that was fun. I want to do it again, or when's my next book coming? And like I said, the other part, it would be the pickups. And if I'm doing my own post-production, which I don't so much anymore, me going through and getting rid of all the breaths and all the little mouth noises, and all the stuff that drives me crazy. That's kind of when the book's over for me.
Nice. And ultimately, Tim, here's the final question. With everything you've learned in your career, from marketing yourself, the classes you've taken, how you've been able to manage your narrating, voice acting duties with also, real life, family, and everything, the projects you've worked on and will continue to work on with these authors, as well as everything else. what do you want people, or what do you hope people will take away from your performances, and not only these projects, but any upcoming projects you have in the works?
Um, my, I guess I can answer it in two ways. My goal, when you listen to a book that I've performed, the biggest compliment you can pay me is listening to it twice. That means because in my own personal experience with audiobooks, there's only been a few series or a few books that I've listened to multiple times. Otherwise, it's like, oh, that was fun. Okay, on to the next one. Um, Dungeon Crawler Carl, I keep mentioning that. I've listened to that entire series so far 3 times. It's a lot of listening. Same with Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, narrated by Ray Porter.
Mm.
Those are, to me, that's a special kind of magic when you're, and I'm about to re-listen to The Devils by Joe Abercrombie because Stephen Pacey is amazing.
Ooh.
I love, he just is a newer narrator to me, but I know he's a legend, and it was excellent. That's the biggest compliment you can pay me, and that's my goal, listening to a book I did more than once, because that means you're getting, you're paying $15 for it. Well, no, you're really paying like $7.50 because you got to listen to it twice, and it was really fun. And then what was the other part of your question?
I think you kind of answered it. What do you want people to ultimately take away from your performance? And I think you really hit the nail on the head. It's like, you want to leave the listeners and readers, for those that what I used to do was listen to the audiobook and read along.
Immersive. Yeah.
Yep. Oh man, that took me back. And just ultimately leave them feeling satisfying and, just coming back and reading it again. And on that note, viewers and listeners, we conclude this incredible narrator interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I want to give a huge thank you to Tim Ratliff for coming on the show. Now, Tim, where can people find you on social media if they want to reach out and connect? What are those 2 projects expected to be released to the public to listen? And do you have any upcoming projects you would like to announce?
Yeah, absolutely. So social media, the ones I use the most are Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And the books that I have coming up in post-production currently is Universe in Flames Book 8, Twilight of the Gods, written by Christian Callias. And that was the one with the homage of Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, Dragon Ball Z, the really, really fun sci-fi book.
Yeah.
And then the other book series I mentioned is called Legends of Vandalore. And that will be co-narrated by my friend Tiffany Van Landingham. And that is an epic fantasy, not so much Lord of the Rings, more Willow.
I like that.
It's not as intense as Lord of the Rings, but it's just a damn good story. And that's written by Chad Odom. So those are the ones I'm really looking forward to. And then with Christian, he heard my first narration of the book, and he's like, I have so many more stories for you. So probably books 9 through 17 in that series. And then also he talked about another series where he might potentially, with Podium, he might get me on that as well. So fingers crossed. I'm looking forward to it because I love his writing.
Nice. I'll link all that down below in the description of this video, viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode here on the channel. A huge thank you to Tim, wishing him the very best. And if you'd like to see Tim back on the show later this year, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will make it happen. And until next time, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill, signing out. Wish you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Happy Saturday, everybody, and we'll see you all in March.